They say 1111 is the minute of wishes, a mystical alignment of numbers where the universe pauses, opens its doors, and listens to the deepest whispers of human hearts. Some wish for wealth, some wish for success. But at platform number 4 of the old city station, 1111 didn't mean a wish. It meant a heartbeat. It meant arrival every single night. As the clock ticked away the final second of 11:10, the heavy iron wheels of the night train would screech to a halt. And every single night, two strangers would stand exactly 10 feet apart under the flickering amber light of a dying lamppost. They never spoke. They never exchanged names. Yet, in the quietest corners of their souls, they knew everything about each other. They were two parallel lines, running alongside the same track, never touching but completely inseparable. It started on a rainy Tuesday in November. Julian was an artist whose canvas had grown cold. He spent his days painting things he didn't care about, and his nights escaping the suffocating silence of his empty apartment. Clara was a writer whose words had lost their melody, carrying a heavy heart from a past she couldn't rewrite. That night, both found themselves stranded at the station. When the clock struck 11:11, their eyes met through the heavy mist. There was no dramatic spark, no cinematic smile, just a profound, instant recognition of shared loneliness. It was as if two broken mirrors had looked at each other and finally found a reflection that made sense. From that night onward, it became an unwritten rule, an unspoken vow. Julian would arrive at 11 o'clock, holding a sketchbook close to his chest. Clara would arrive a minute later, her woolen scarf tucked tightly around her neck. They would stand there, feeling the cold wind generated by the incoming train, looking at the tracks and occasionally at each other, in a world that was moving too fast, a world loud with judgment and demands. That 1 minute at 11:11 was their sanctuary. They didn't need words. Words can lie, words can hurt, but the silence between them, the silence was completely honest. Months bled into seasons. The bitter cold of winter gave way to the gentle warmth of spring. The station changed, the passengers changed, but the two of them remained constant. Julian began to notice the small things, the way Clara would shift her weight when she was tired, the specific shade of blue scarf she wore when she seemed sadder than usual. He found his inspiration returning. In the dark hours of the midnight, his brush moved with a new purpose. He wasn't painting landscapes anymore. He was painting the essence of a girl under an amber light. Clara, too, found her voice again. Her notebook filled with stories of a silent guardian, a man with paint-stained fingers and eyes that looked like they had weathered 1,000 storms. They became each other's anchor. On days when Julian wanted to give up on his art, he would remind himself, "I have to stand at the platform at 11:11. On days when Clara's grief felt too heavy to bear, she would think, "Someone is waiting in the silence." They never stepped closer. They never broke the 10-foot boundary. Perhaps they were afraid that reality would shatter the perfection of their illusion. Or perhaps they knew that some connections are so fragile, so sacred, that even a whispered hello could break them. Then came the autumn. The leaves fell, painting the city in shades of sorrow. It was a Friday night. The rain was pouring heavily, washing away the dirt from the tracks. Julian arrived at 11 o'clock, just like he always did. His heart beat with the familiar anticipation. The clock ticked. 11:08, 11:09, 11:10. The train roared into the station, its bright headlight cutting through the dark downpour. The brakes groaned. The doors opened. The clock struck 11:11. Julian turned his head toward the lamppost. The space was empty. The wind blew hard, scattering the autumn leaves across the concrete. But there was no woolen scarf. There were no quiet footsteps. The lamppost flickered, casting a lonely shadow where she was supposed to stand. Julian's heart skipped a beat. "She's just late," he told himself. The rain must have delayed her. He waited. He stayed until the train departed. He stayed until the station master turned off the platform lights at midnight. She didn't come. One night turned into a week turned into a month. Every single night, without fail, Julian stood at platform number 4. The clock would strike 11:11. The train would come and go, and the space next to him would remain painfully, devastatingly vacant. He didn't know where she went. Did she move away? Did she find happiness? Or did the darkness she carried finally catch up to her? He had no way of knowing. He didn't even know her name. To look her up, he realized with a crushing weight that she had vanished into the same thin air she had arrived from. The silence that used to comfort him now tortured him. Every tick of the station clock felt like a hammer against his chest. Yet, he couldn't stop coming, because leaving the platform meant accepting that she was gone forever, and that was a reality his heart refused to paint. He realized the cruel irony of 11:11. It was the minute of wishes, and for the rest of his life, his only wish would be for a train that would bring back a stranger. Years later, an art gallery in the heart of the city held an exhibition by a famous, reclusive artist. The centerpiece of the exhibition was a massive canvas that drew crowds from all over. It was a painting of an old railway station at night, bathed in a haunting amber glow. On the platform stood a single, lonely figure looking at an empty space under a lamppost. The details were so raw, the longing so palpable, that anyone who looked at it felt a sudden tear come to their eye. The title of the painting was simply 11:11. Far away, in another city, an older woman sits by a window, watching the rain fall. On her lap is a published book of poetry, a bestseller about a silent love found at a train station. She wraps a faded blue woolen scarf tighter around her shoulders, looks at the clock on her wall as it changes to 11:11, and gently closes her eyes. Some love stories aren't defined by weddings, rings, or forever. Some love stories live entirely in the unspoken spaces. In a single minute, on a lonely canvas, the sound of the train fades completely into absolute silence.